Welcome back inside the Now Morning Show. I hope that you're feeling all right this morning. It is Monday, so of course you know the TTPS joins us on Monday. This Monday, we're back with Inspector Michelle Lewis. Good morning to you, Inspector.
Good morning, Rawkus. Good morning, Natasha. Good morning to all your listening and viewing audience.
How are you doing this morning, Inspector?
We are good. Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, we are well. And of course, always happy to be on TTT now.
I hear they have a plan.
Let's go.
We have always had a plan.
Tell me the plan, Inspector.
Well, the organization, in the first instance, we have our strategic plan 2022-2024. And then, of course, further to that, we have our crime reduction plan. And so within that crime reduction plan, it looks at precision, it looks at proactivity, it looks at building the increased public trust and confidence in the public. It also looks at the prevention and prosecution in relation to criminal offences. So when we look at the violent crime reduction plan in itself, when we look at violent crimes and what violent crime is, it includes anything that anyone who is being threatened or hurt in any way. And of course, it includes murder. Violent crime includes gang-related activities. And so within that plan, it looks at the current state of Trinidad and Tobago in relation to the proliferation of illegal firearms and ammunition, and what the TTPS and how we are going to treat with that. And so we have continuously been reviewing that plan as well as our strategic plan to see where we can strengthen and enhance our abilities in relation to reduction of crime and increase relation with the public, building trust and confidence.
Is the reviewing ongoing? The reason I ask is because initially it sounded as though this is something that's quite hard and fast, but as we know, we're seeing changes when it comes to trends in crime. So what is the process like to review? Is it an ongoing basis, a monthly basis, that sort of thing?
It's a continuous basis, meaning that the executive meets on a weekly basis, and then from time to time, if it requires more meetings than that, that happens. So there are continuous meetings within the organization at different levels, within the divisions, within the executive, and that kind of thing. And what we look at is the scientific data that we retrieve through the crime and problem analysis that will guide us and direct us as to where to put more resources, what to do, and the time of day that we would execute. Now, some things we say public, and some things, of course, we don't.
And this is the part that always gets interesting for me, right? Because I've seen some things where I'm like, guys, I'm not sure we should have said that just yet. Because I feel like you just give people, hey, a heads up, we come in for this, so hide it. But I am really curious as to how effective the plan has been so far. Have we seen any reductions that we can note so far?
Well, for last year, though the decrease was small, but it was still a decrease, where we saw a reduction in the amount of murders that we had and violent crimes. Within the entire year so far, outside of within the last 2 weeks or 1 week period, is where we saw an increase, where we saw the 2023 figure lower than the 2024 figure. And of course, of course, was a red flag for the TTPS, because we have been decreasing and moving towards our plan and progressively changing as time goes by. So with that change that we saw, of course, we looked at the plan again and where we can, the data again, and look where we can adjust in relation to crime reduction. Now, crime in itself happens, as we know, from the videos that we see, all during the day and night. We see videos where persons blatantly come out at 11 a.m., 2 p.m., 11 p.m. There is no particular time where someone has a firearm and ammunition on them, illegal that is, and intend to commit a violent crime. And so with that in mind, the TTPS must be able to engage at different times of the day to be able to counteract that. The firearms are moving in vehicles with persons in the vehicles at different times of the day and night. And this is something that we like the public to understand and appreciate, that we are moving with the scientific data and what you are seeing out there as well, and how we are counteracting and combating that to ensure your safety and security.
Okay, so when you get stopped in a roadblock, it's because we're just making sure that everything is safe and the scientific data is there to back it up that says maybe there's somebody moving now that we're looking for in particular.
Yeah, and we see it all the time. We see all the videos, I mean, blatantly at coffee shop, at the store, at the cast or, blatant during the course of the day, and these persons are utilizing the highways, the Eastern Main Road and different spots. So we must do what we have to do.
I want to just ask about the prevention aspect of the plan, though, because what you're talking about there is we already have the problem. We know where the problem is at, and we know we have to respond. We know we have to use the scientific data to try our best to reduce crime. But how are we trying to prevent crime?
That also works in the prevention of it. Just within the last week, someday we had exercises, and during those exercises we saw where several persons were arrested, several illegal firearms and ammunition were retrieved, and persons even fixed penalty notices, which persons tend to look at as in a very light way. But we have persons who utilize the roadways who do not have permission to do so, whether it be a driver's permit or insurance. And these persons are putting other persons' lives at risk. And so these are also instances and incidents that the TTPS must pay attention to.
Yeah.
And so these are one of the ways that it is proactive, as you mentioned. Of course, there are various others, police youth clubs and that kind of thing, but prevention through those exercises do help.
Go ahead, Tash, because
you're ready to
go ahead.
Well, one of the things I did want to ask very briefly before we go back to Rawkus is one of the things that you mentioned, of course, is the community involvement. You just alluded to it. And we know that the TTPS has a theme, which is if you see something, say something. How important is community involvement, like reporting, for example, when it comes to a plan like this and it actually being successful?
When it comes to the plan?
The plan, like a strategic plan, how important is it?
The communication with the members of the public?
With the members of the public, yeah.
All right, so what we have been doing, we've been having our police town meetings throughout the division and that kind of thing. And sometimes when we're on the very exercise, someone may mention something to us in relation to what they would have observed. And that information is what we also act on. So when we say, when you see something, say something, we really want you to partner with the TTPS. What we don't want, which we know will happen, is that persons feel targeted as a law-abiding citizen whilst we are doing our duty to ensure your safety. We really want you to appreciate some of the information that we are sending to you, because we cannot give you all the information, but we really want you to continue to partner with us and trust that the TTPS has your best interests at heart for the security of Trinidad and Tobago.
Right, so Inspector, I want to jump back to what we were talking about before, right? And we mentioned, of course, finding firearms in vehicles and preventing crimes that way. But you also mentioned the importation of firearms, because we don't make them here in Trinidad and Tobago. So when you find people on the streets with them, that's already when it's already distributed and it's in the hands of people it ought not to be in. Are we able to get to a place where we can prevent them from entering the country?
Well, the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, we operate on the land. And so as the organization responsible for law and order on the land space, we cannot speak in relation to otherwise like the seas and that kind of thing. That would be another.
I talk about when it land, the container had a land here at some point.
One of the things we have to look at, because you said it correctly, but let me just add another element, right? We also have the parts of the firearm that come into the country. And unless persons are aware that these are the moving parts of a firearm that can be mounted up and become a lethal weapon, it can pass through anyone. So we do, I think you remember, we had an exercise sometime last year, a very big exercise, where a lot of firearm parts were found. Right? So it indicates to the public that the firearms are also being built in Trinidad. Built in Trinidad, right? Assembly in Trinidad, so that therefore the parts are coming in, so it makes it a bit more difficult for persons who are not aware of what this piece of metal really signifies. And so not just firearms coming in already built as a heavy arm, any kind, AR rifle or whatever it is, but we're also getting the parts of the firearm coming in and then being assembly somewhere else, which is also of great concern.
Okay, so just jumping off of the question that Rawkus just asked, right? You said, of course, you deal with the law of the land. We're here, we're on the ground. So what about collaborating with other agencies?
We do.
Yeah?
We do.
Is it part of the strategic plan, or is there another plan that we also have to look to?
No, we do. The TTPS, we continuously indicate the continuous support that we have through the Trinidad and Tobago Defence Force, under which we have the Coast Guard, the Air Guard, and that kind of thing. But in asking me to speak specifically, I wouldn't be able to in that capacity, but certainly we do.
Yeah, and that's fair. Inspector, before we wrap up, how can we, the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, the general public, how can we be a part of this crime reduction plan?
You said it. Where if you see something, say something. We have the TTPS contact number direct to the Commissioner and the Deputy Commissioners, which is 736 TTPS. If you have information, particularly when it comes to firearm ammunition, and for example, you know that someone has hidden a firearm somewhere, you may not want, and I'm saying this as a police, but I'm also saying it as a member of the community. You may not want your relative to get arrested, but you saw where they put the firearm. Dial anonymously and let us know, and we will come and take that firearm. It will prevent the life of someone or the lives of somebody, some persons from being taken or being harmed or injured, right? And so it's important that when you see something, you say something. It is also important that when you see the police exercising our duty and performance of our duty, to give us that support, because we are doing it with the intent of what is happening in Trinidad and Tobago, and to be able to reduce the fear of crime and the criminality that is taking place in the land. We also want to encourage persons that when we have matters before the court, to please give evidence in order for us to have successful prosecution in matters. And that is one of the key pillars in relation to our strategies, being able to not just arrest persons, but successful prosecutions of those persons through the court system.
Definitely quite critical. Well, Inspector, thank you so much for joining us this morning. We appreciate it.
It was a pleasure, yes.
And may you all continue to work as hard as you do.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having us.
Inspector Michelle Lewis here this morning with us on the Now Morning Show, speaking about the violent crime reduction plan with the TTPS. Stay tuned. Your birthdays are coming up right now.
No one couldn't walk alone. Tongue was like a bathing zone, but nowadays and so